The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
This is the last video you'll ever need on the topic. So you've no doubt heard about the April O'Neil controversy. People online are fighting over the justification of the palette-swapped April O'Neil. We're going to spare you any outrage and instead give you this video that will act as the final nail in the coffin for April O'Neil's origin. April O'Neil was introduced in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1, Issue Number 2, published in October of 1984. Here's how she is drawn by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in that first appearance, including panels where she is next to Baxter Stockman, who is most definitely black. And here she is in TMNT Issue Number 3. Notice that she has straight hair and a fair complexion. That will come up later in this article. If your argument is that she might still be black because this comic isn't in color, then here's how she appeared on the cover of TMNT number 2 in its third printing, with art by Richard Corbin. If your argument is that Eastman and Laird had Corbin color April as white for synergy with the TMNT animated series produced by Fred Wolf, which first aired on December 28, 1987, the TMNT number 2 third printing was released June 10, 1986. No month in the indicia, but the news section in the back of the book cites June 10, 86, as seen below. And furthermore, here is Kevin Eastman's own account of when he and Laird first approached by Mark Friedman to license the TMNT for toys and cartoons, as seen in Comics Journal interview, which he cites July 1986. This means that April being colored white for the TMNT number 2 third printing cover predates any mere idea that the TMNT animated series and its subsequent version of April. If your argument is that the cover wasn't drawn by Eastman or Laird, so her being white doesn't count, here is the colorized version of TMNT number 2 as it appears in the First Comics TMNT Volume 1 trade paperback from 1986. If your argument is that the colors in the trade weren't provided or overseen by Eastman or Laird, then here's the credits page. If your argument is that Eastman and Laird meant to draw a black woman but drew a white woman by mistake, then meant to color a black woman but colored a white woman by mistake, then meant to ask Richard Corbin to draw a black woman but accepted his drawing of a white woman by mistake, then I don't think this article is for you. So here's the question. Why do so many people think April was originally black in the Mirage TMNT comics? Where did that get started? Well, 2 issues after making her debut appearance, April got a makeover in TMNT number 4. April went to a new wave hair salon and got herself a perm. So from TMNT number 4 through about TMNT number 28, April sported this look. Then in TMNT number 28, she gave up the perm and let her hair go straight again. Those black and white panels of April in the 80s perm are usually what you see when someone endeavors to present proof that April was originally black in the Mirage comics. Now, ignoring that it's a look, acquired superficially though deliberately spelled out in plot points, the curly hair is not natural. So it also ignores the fact that all those issues with her with the perm came after the first 2 appearances, so that's hardly how she originally looked. And furthermore, for those who aren't well acquainted with the trend of the 1980s, big, permed, curly hairdos were fashionable across all ethnic fields at the time, both black and white. It was a style popular among many white women in the 1980s, and April was staying with that trend. She even mentioned that she went to a new wave hair salon. When the big hair trend faded away towards the end of the 1980s, April lost the perm and went back to having either straight or slightly bouncy hair, as seen in TMNT number 61. Admittedly, if one were just to look at some of the panels she appeared with the perm, not having read any of those previous issues, and with no other context than, look, April's a black woman, then yes, I can understand coming away with that impression that April was black, because, in addition to the perm, she also infrequently sported a tan as seen in Tales of TMNT Volume 1, Number 7. But having access to a curling iron and a tanning bed does not make you a black person. Then again, there was that one time in the Mirage comics where April was black. For real. TMNT Volume 1, Number 32 was part of the guest era of the series, a span of the comic where freelance indie creators were invited to contribute issues of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that did not rely on continuity. Many of these stories were goofy, surreal comedies, others were wholesale reboots of the origin story, and some did endeavor to follow the continuity of the canon Mirage series. TMNT Number 30 by Mark Bode was not one of those issues that tried to follow canon. Instead, it was a surreal comedy that deviated from the continuity in most aspects. The sewer lair was in Northampton instead of New York City. April was a news reporter like her cartoon counterpart, an occupation her Mirage incarnation never had in canon. And April was also black. Albeit, that was the second printing of the issue, with colors by Bill Fitz. Here's what she looked like in the first printing, which was released in black and white. And for the record, when the issue was recolored for IDW's TMNT Classics Volume 4 trade paperback, with colors by Digicore Design Limited, April looked like this. But the point is, at least one of the 3 versions of TMNT number 32, April was black. Or then again, they could say she had a really, really nice tan. So who's to say? But nobody thought much of it because this was a guest issue from a freelancer that did not follow the continuity of the main series and was considered non-canon. Still, that hasn't stopped select panels from the issue from being passed around as proof that April was black in the Mirage series. I mean, she was, yes, but for this one lone, non-canon, out-of-continuity guest issue. But there's more to the origin of this misconception than just confusion over the out-of-context visual samples. In Kevin Eastman's 2002 retrospective book, TMNT, Autobiography, he spoke briefly about the origin of April as a character. Originally created as an Asian character in Pete's notes, but named after an African-American woman I once knew, the character of April O'Neil was introduced in issue number 2, and would have a bunch of different looks throughout the TMNT history. That single sentence, often misremembered, paraphrased, and misquoted, has been part of the confusion going from April was named after an African-American woman I knew to April was an African-American. Incidentally, no one ever talks about how April was conceived by Peter Laird as an Asian character. I wonder why. Also, the woman Eastman was referring to as the late April Fisher, whom Eastman was also married to for a short period of time. Lending some credence to the idea that April's redesign in TMNT number 4 was inspired by Fisher, Eastman does have a history of designing female characters in his comics in the likeness of his current spouse. In the period in which he was married to actress Julie Strain, many of the women he designed similarly in conjunction with artist Simon Bisley looked similar to her. Below you can see Midnight from the TMNT series Body Count, as well as Julie from Heavy Metal 2000, incidentally voiced by Strain in the film. Also incidentally, her love interest was designed to look like Eastman. Currently, Eastman doesn't insert his wife Courtney into much of his work that I can find. He and Courtney appeared on the cover of a Capital City Comic-Con edition of IDW's TMNT 30th Anniversary Special, art by Paolo Pentelena, and Courtney provided the voice of April O'Neil in the 2016 TMNT short film Pizza Friday, though April was not redesigned to look like Courtney. So it would certainly be naive or deliberately obtuse to ignore the possibility that April's redesign in TMNT number 4 was inspired by Fisher. But the takeaway should also be that it was a redesign removed from April's first appearance. It is not her original look. It was also designed to be temporary and faded away when the big hair trend of the 80s ran its course. As for Peter Laird's take on the subject, he had this to say in an August 6, 2009 edition of Ask Peter. It depends on which co-creator of the TMNT you ask. If you ask me, I always saw April O'Neil as white. If you ask Kevin, I suspect he would say, as he has said in a number of interviews, that she was of mixed race, much like his former girlfriend, then his wife, then ex-wife, April. It does lend some further confusion, as Eastman has said he named April after his then-wife, and Laird suspected he saw April as either black or mixed, like his then-wife, but also doesn't change the fact that Eastman drew April as white in her first appearance and then colored her as white or oversaw and approved of the colors in the first comic trade paperback reprints. If he personally saw her as black, that isn't something that made it into the pages of her earliest appearance, and if that was the intention of her new look beginning in TMNT number 4, it was an intention that didn't stick, as she lost those aesthetics 20 issues or so later. The question apparently has been posted to Laird several other times. As the co-creator of the character, and as someone who always imagined her as white, and very likely of Irish, Scottish, or English ancestry, I was not at all unsettled by the depictions of her as such in a various adaptation. Kevin may have had a different view. I can't speak for him, but that's the way I always saw her. As for the coloring of her skin in the color reprints of the Mirage comics, Kevin had always had a lot more input on that end of the business than I did. In fact, I'm pretty sure he did the colors of the initial such reprintings of the first Mirage comics. The one in the graphic novel form. Make of that what you will. So at least from the mouth of Peter Laird, April being colored white in the first comics graphic novel collection was a deliberate choice made by Kevin Eastman. And here's an interesting one, a bit removed from the conversation about the origins, but worth noting. From April 23, 2013, inquiring a story from Turtle Soup number 4, December 1991. The story is Raphael Snapper, by Rick McCullum, with colors by Peter Laird, which depict April with a dark tan skin tone. I believe that is the one I colored in Photoshop, my first such experience with doing that. I never envisioned April as black, so if she looked like that to you in the story, it might be because of the way the artist drew her, or some failure on my part in the coloring, or just something about the way you perceive it, or some combination of the above. It was certainly not my intention to color her in a way to make anyone think she was black. Further creator commentary on April's origin can be found in IDW's TMNT Ultimate Collections Volume 1, with the annotations of issue number 2. Laird said, apparently, at the time these sketches were done, two important things had not yet been decided upon: Baxter Stockman's race and April O'Neil's name. Evidently, there was no confusion as to April's race when the comic first went into publication, with Kevin apparently having settled the issue of her name as previously brought up. Interestingly, it wasn't April who seemed to have a discrepancy regarding race, but rather it was Baxter Stockman. In a photo from Eastman's autobiography, you can see the thumbnails from issue number 2, where Baxter is clearly a white man. By the time the final art for issue number 2 was produced, Baxter was made a black man. Would anyone argue that Baxter Stockman was originally white because of those thumbnails when the actual final published issue made him black? I've never heard anyone suggest so. Regarding those sketches Laird was referring to in the quote, Here are some of the earliest designs for April, then referred to as Assistant and Baxter, and you can see they had multiple ethnic options in mind for Baxter, though April's design was more or less settled from the get-go. And what do you know, all this talk about April's race in the Mirage comics is kind of moot anyway, when Laird revealed in TMNT Volume 4, issue number 22, that she was never human to begin with. Mirage April is in fact a drawing brought to life by a magical crystal. I don't think there's anything more to say. The misconception has been floating around for years, though it seems to have kicked into overdrive with the reveal of the upcoming rise of the TMNT animated series from Nickelodeon, in which April will be black. Some folks are questioning the change in her ethnicity, which has elicited the counter-argument that April was originally black in the Mirage comics, followed by panels from TMNT number 4, the cover of TMNT number 11, or pages from TMNT number 32. Oddly, never TMNT number 2, her first appearance. If you're of the opinion that April being black is fine, or that her race doesn't matter, or that her glasses look stupid, then that's a-okay. I'm not here to argue with you. The purpose of this article was to correct the misconception that has been spiraling out of control recently. To summarize, April was conceived by Peter Laird as an Asian woman in the early concept stages, but ultimately developed as a white woman in her first appearance. She was named by Kevin Eastman after his then-girlfriend and future ex-wife, who was of mixed heritage, but if he had any idea of April being black or mixed, he never implemented them on the page, beyond the perm, which he only had for a couple of years. April has been black in occasional comics and cartoons over the years, and for all we know, someday she may be Asian, Hispanic, or Indian, but she was originally white in the Mirage comics. So there it is, black and white, clear as crystal. April O'Neil's origin? Answer confirmed. So anytime you see anyone online want to tell you that April O'Neil is black, send them this video, because facts always put people in their place. I'd like to thank the TMNT Entity blog for all this wonderful information on the origin of April O'Neil. You can find them at tmnentity.blogspot.com. This article was originally titled, "Was April O'Neil originally black in the Mirage comics?" Spoiler, no she wasn't. If you want to find more information on TMNT, Google it. It's one of the biggest properties in the world. But from all of us here at WCBS, thank you for watching. Be smart, be safe, be cool, join our membership program, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.